I moved into a quiet suburban neighborhood a few weeks ago. I thought it would be a good place to work as a freelance graphic designer. After my breakup, I needed some peace. But I started to feel uneasy. Four strange things happened that still haunt me. On my third night, I heard a tapping coming from the wall. It was slow and steady, like someone was knocking. I tried to ignore it, thinking it was just my neighbor working late, but I couldn't relax. My heart raced as I tossed and turned in bed. The next day, I explored the neighborhood. It seemed nice. Kids played in the park, laughter filled the air. When I got home that night, I glanced out the window and saw my neighbor staring back at me. He stood motionless, just looking through the glass. I couldn't see his expression. My heart jumped. I shut the curtains quickly. I wondered if I imagined it. Later that week, I heard children laughing outside. It sounded like a party, but I hadn't seen any kids around. I thought maybe they were at school. But every evening, the laughter came back. It was always the same sound, echoing softly. I felt a chill. Something wasn't right, but I didn't know what. One day, I decided to confront my neighbor. I walked to the door and knocked. I waited a while. My heart pounded in my chest. Finally, the door cracked open. A woman I hadn't seen before stood there. She looked tired, like she hadn't slept in days. Her eyes darted around. She didn't say a word. I felt confused. Maybe she wasn't the owner of the house. After that, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong in that house. I sat at my desk trying to work, but every little noise distracted me. My eyes kept drifting to the window, half expecting my neighbor to be staring again. Each evening, the laughter grew louder. It unsettled me. I felt like I was losing my mind. Then, one night, I heard the tapping again. This time, it sounded like scratching. I felt cold all over. My heart raced. I wanted to know what was happening. I crept up to the wall and pressed my ear against it. That's when I heard a child's voice. It whispered, "Come play with us." I froze. My breath caught in my throat. I pulled away from the wall and looked out the window. My neighbor stood there, staring through the glass once more. But suddenly he turned away. He started tapping on the glass, slow and methodical. I looked away, but the sound didn't stop. I wanted to scream, but I couldn't. Then I felt something brush against my neck. I spun around, but there was nobody there. I didn't get a good night's sleep for days. Those four incidents replayed in my mind, leaving me confused and uneasy. I wanted to leave, but somehow I couldn't. I still think about what happened. The laughter, the tapping, and the man staring at me. I wonder if I'll ever feel safe in my own home again. I spent the next few days on edge. Every noise made me jump, and I couldn't focus on my work. The laughter echoed constantly in my mind. I thought about going out to confront my neighbor again, but part of me was afraid. What if I asked the wrong questions? One evening, as the sun set, I decided to take a walk. I needed to clear my head and find out more about the neighborhood. I approached the park where I'd heard the children's laughter. When I arrived, it was empty. No kids, no families, just an eerie silence. I walked around, trying to shake the unsettling feeling. Then I noticed something odd in the bushes by the playground. It looked like a doll, its face dirty and eyes wide open, staring blankly ahead. I bent down to pick it up. It was cold and slightly damp. That's when I heard it again. The laughter, but now it was different. It felt closer, like it was inside my head. I dropped the doll and backed away. My heart raced as I turned to leave. Then I saw her. The woman from my neighbor's house stood at the edge of the park, her eyes locked on me. She looked even more worn out than before, but something in her gaze made me shiver. "Don't take it," she said, her voice low and shaky. "They don't like when you take their things." I hesitated. unsure of how to respond. "What do you mean?" Her expression changed. "The laughter. They want you to play." I felt a rush of fear. "Who are they?" But before I could get an answer, a loud crash echoed from behind me. I turned back toward the park. The playground equipment rattled as if something had hit it. My instincts screamed at me to run, but I had to know what was happening. I glanced back at the woman, but she was gone. I fled the park and hurried home, my mind racing. The walls felt closer, and the silence in my house was deafening. I locked the door and drew the curtains, wanting to shut out the world. Then I remembered the tapping. It started again, louder this time, as if whatever was trying to get my attention was not going to give up. My hands trembled as I pressed my ear against the wall once more. "Come play with us," the child's voice whispered, clearer than before. My breath hitched. I couldn't ignore it any longer. That's when I decided to do something I had been avoiding. I would confront them. I would find out what was going on, no matter the cost. But as I turned to gather my things, the lights flickered. Everything went dark. Panic surged through me. I was not alone anymore. I stood in the dark, my heart pounding. The silence felt heavy, like a thick blanket closing in around me. I reached for my phone, praying it hadn't died, but the screen stayed black. I needed light. I stumbled into the living room and fumbled for the nearest lamp. My fingers shook as I flipped the switch, but nothing happened. The shadows grew longer, creeping along the furniture. Then I heard it again. Faint laughter, this time echoing from the hallway. I froze, my breath catching in my throat. It was a child's laugh, playful and haunting. It was wrong. It felt wrong. Gathering my courage, I moved toward the noise. Each step felt like an eternity, the darkness swallowing me whole. As I reached the hallway, I noticed something glimmering near the floor. A small, broken toy, a spinning top, lay abandoned. I bent down to pick it up, and the laugh grew louder. "Come play with us," the voice rang out again, closer than before. It was almost a command. Sweat trickled down my back, but a part of me felt drawn to the sound. Was it just the fear fueling my curiosity, or was there something more? I took a deep breath and stepped into the darkness of my bedroom. I needed to shine a light someplace. My laptop. If I could get it to turn on, I could at least cast a glow. But as I reached for it, a sudden gust of cold air rushed past me, slamming the door behind me. I spun around, panic surging through me. "Who's there?" I called out, my voice shaking. Silence. The only response was the whispering laughter, now mixed with a faint melody that seemed to drift through the air. It was childlike, sweet, yet it turned my stomach. My mind raced. I thought of the woman from the park. Maybe she knew what was happening. I had to get answers, but my house felt like a trap. I crept back toward the living room, careful not to make any noise. The laughter seemed to guide me, pulling me toward the front door. I hesitated. What if I opened it and found nothing? What if worse awaited me outside? Then, just as I turned the knob, I heard a faint cry. It was a soft whimper that made my stomach drop. I knew that sound. It was the cry of a child. I swung the door open, spilling out into the night. The sudden rush of cool air filled my lungs, but the street was empty. No children, no parents, just the stars twinkling above, as if mocking my fear. I looked around, feeling the urge to call out, to ask who was there. But I knew better. The longer I stood here, the more I felt the weight of unseen eyes watching me. Suddenly, I noticed a movement at the edge of the park, just beyond the trees. A figure emerged, shrouded in darkness, but unmistakably a child. My heart raced as the figure turned toward me, and our eyes locked. Then the laughter returned, rising like a crescendo, and I knew I had to decide. Confront this figure, this unknown, or retreat back to the safety of my house, where the darkness had already begun to creep in. I hesitated, caught between fear and an inexplicable urge to know what lay ahead. Before I could think any longer, the child beckoned, turning back into the depths of the trees, disappearing into the shadows. I needed to follow. The shadows danced around me as I stepped into the park. The laughter faded, but left an eerie echo in my mind. I moved cautiously, stepping over roots and uneven ground, each sound amplifying the tension in my bones. The child seemed to glide between the trees, their small form vanishing and reappearing like a flicker of light. Just when I thought I lost them, their bright eyes glanced back, urging me to keep following. "Wait!" I yelled, but the voice seemed to dissolve into the night air. My heart raced, pounding against my ribcage, a beat that fought against my sheer terror. I wanted to turn back, but there was something about that laughter, something that connected me to my own childhood innocence. Or perhaps it was just pure madness tugging at me. As I followed further, I noticed a flicker of light ahead. It pulsed gently, drawing me in. Was it a lantern? I pushed through the trees, branches snagging at my clothes, leaves crunching beneath my feet. Each step felt like a leap into a different world. When I finally burst through the last line of trees, I stumbled into a small clearing. The light I saw was coming from a collection of candles arranged in a circle, illuminating a group of ragged dolls placed around them. They sat propped against the roots of an ancient tree. An unsettling chill washed over me. "Hello?" I called out hesitantly. My voice felt small. There was no answer, just the soft rustling of leaves. I glanced down at the dolls. Their painted eyes seemed to glimmer in the candlelight, trapping my gaze, their smiles wide and malicious. Then I heard it again, the laughter, but it was layered with whispers now, as though a dozen children were urging me to play with them. I took a shaky step closer, the urge to examine the dolls crashing over me. If the laughter was coming from them, surely inspecting them might reveal something crucial. "Come on, don't be shy." A soft voice drifted from behind me, as if it had stepped from the shadows. I whipped around, but no one was there. The laughter swelled again, a chorus of delight mixed with something sinister. Heart in my throat, I turned back toward the dolls. That same urge to reach out and touch one overwhelmed me. They felt like a part of something bigger, something I needed to understand. But before I could act on my impulse, another sound broke through. The faint cry of the child from earlier, now mixed with desperation. In that moment, the light from the candles flickered violently, and everything went dark. My breath quickened. I felt blind and betrayed by the night. Then, just as suddenly, the darkness receded. I found myself standing facing the dolls again, but one was gone. Panic surged through me. I stumbled back, eyes searching. "What the hell?" I murmured, my heart racing even faster. I couldn't shake the feeling. I was being watched still, that I was no longer alone in this clearing. Faint footsteps echoed from the brush behind me, and I turned, every nerve frayed. There it was again, the whisper of laughter, closer now. Whatever had taken the doll was right there, and that's when I realized the truth. I was not the one following a child. I was being led deeper into something sinister, and I could no longer turn back. I stood frozen, heart pounding in my ears as the shadows settled around me once more. I listened, straining to hear above the silence, but the laughter had faded, replaced by a suffocating stillness. The darkness felt alive, wrapping around me like a thick fog. I was no longer the stalker. I was the prey. I glanced at the dolls again. The chilling emptiness where one had stood felt alive with intent. Why did I feel the urge to dig deeper? I was aware I should be running back through the trees, back to safety. But something held me there, a futile curiosity driven by desperation. A rustle broke the silence, and I spun around, scanning the shadows that loomed around me. "Hello?" My voice quivered. I hated how small it sounded. No reply came, just the bitter wind sighing through the treetops. I took a step back toward the candles, but an ache of dread twisted in my stomach. The dolls, their painted grins felt mocking now. They looked as if they were in on something I had missed. Maybe there was a message, an answer among the ragdoll faces. As I edged closer, my foot caught on something. I tripped, landing hard on the ground. When I looked up, I noticed something reflecting in the candlelight. I crawled toward it. It was the doll that was missing, laying face down in the grass, its glassy eyes cracked and dull. "Why would you?" I started, but the words stalled in my throat as a soft hum started up around me. It wove through the air like an entrancing lullaby, stirring memories I had long left behind. Suddenly, bubbles of laughter erupted again. This time it was blended with low whispers, impossible to discern. I felt a hand grip my shoulder, cold and unwelcome. I jumped and spun around, expecting to confront whatever had crept up on me. Nothing. Just air. My senses tingled. I was losing my grip. I scrambled to my feet, the doll uncaringly abandoned behind me. I needed to leave, to escape this madness. But my legs felt shackled to the earth. Then I saw them. A reflection of brightness flickered in the distance. Not candles, but the faint outline of a child standing at the edge of the clearing. Their face was obscured, the form illuminated by a glimmering light that confused my thoughts. "Help me," it whispered, thin and haunting. "Wait," I shouted again, desperation clawing at my throat. I took one uncertain step toward the figure, but as if sensing my movement, the child turned and darted back into the trees, the laughter filtering back into the stillness like whispers of the wind. I hesitated, that haunting giggle echoing behind me, yet something else stirred within me. It was a feeling far stronger than fear, an almost primal instinct to chase after the child. I took a deep breath, pushing past the cold sweat creeping down my spine. I ran, heart racing, deeper into the darkness. The laughter crescendoed, and the whispers became louder, as if they were waiting for me to catch up, to play once more. And then, just as I entered the tree line, I stumbled upon a series of trees marked with strange carvings. A sickening feeling filled my gut. That bright laughter turned into something else, sharp and menacing. Whatever game I was caught in was about to escalate. I pushed through the trees, the scent of damp earth filling my lungs as I forced myself forward. The laughter's shrillness transformed, a mocking melody taunting me. I could feel something shifting around me, shadows bending and twisting like claws reaching out to catch me. The trees were taller here, their gnarled branches overhead forming an almost impenetrable canopy. I squinted, trying to spot the child again, but all I could see were the carvings etched into the rough bark. They spiraled and curled, unnatural symbols I couldn't decipher. Panic surged through me. I was surrounded by signs of something ancient, something that had slept far too long. Then a chill swept through the air, heavier than before, as the whispers grew clearer. "Join us," they echoed, soft yet sinister. My breath hitched at the dread that clawed at my spine. Every hair on my body stood on end. I had to keep moving, but my feet felt rooted to the forest floor. I took a step back and collided with something solid. Whirling around, my pulse quickened. It was one of the trees. But no, it looked different now. There was a deep crack in the trunk, pulsing with a faint, eerie glow. I reached out, compelled by some unseen force, and my fingertips grazed the surface. That's when I saw it. Hidden in the crack were more dolls, their faces pressed against the bark as if trying to escape. The expression on their painted faces was one of terror, matching my own. I yanked my hand away, heart racing faster than ever. Then I heard this, a low growl, the sound threading through the trees. I spun around, scanning the darkness, my instincts screaming that I wasn't alone. "Who's there?" My voice strained, fearful yet defiant. A form emerged from the shadows, a figure with a twisted smile that seemed too wide for its face. It was not the child. This creature was taller, clothed in dark, tattered rags, fear etched into the very fabric of his being. My body froze, a mix of fight or flight coursing through me, straining under the weight of dread. It raised a jagged finger, pointing directly at me, and I felt an invisible force push against my chest. I stumbled backward, but the laughter rose in a chorus, now surrounding me, pressing in softly, then harshly. The edges of my vision blurred, the ground began to shift beneath me. "Come play," it called, its voice a mixture of innocence and malice. A terrible thrill went through me. All thoughts of escape evaporated. I was trapped in this dance. Then everything went dark. My world spun, shadows closing in like a curtain. The laughter wove in and out of my consciousness, wrapping around me, pulling me down into the depths of an unknown terror. And just when I thought I might slip into oblivion, a light blazed before my eyes, brighter than the stars. It sliced through the darkness, a beacon in the night. But the shadows recoiled, hissing like snakes. I reached for the light instinctively. Just as my fingertips touched its warmth, a deafening roar filled the space, shaking the very ground around me. I was caught between two worlds, the laughter of children echoing on one side and the promise of the light on the other. The choice hung heavily in the air. Would I run toward the light, or would I succumb to the shadows? I gasped, waking in a clearing. The night was still, but the air buzzed with tension. My heart pounded as I struggled to rise, disoriented. The laughter had faded, replaced by the rustling of leaves that seemed to whisper secrets. I rubbed my eyes, desperate to shake off the remnants of the nightmare. The moon hung high, its light illuminating the space around me. The trees were a dark fortress, but I couldn't sense the ominous presence anymore. I was alone. Relieved, I pushed myself up, brushing off the damp leaves clinging to my clothes. But something felt off. I took a breath, forcing my senses to heighten. I could still feel the chill of that twisted figure in my bones. Where had it gone? I scanned the clearing once more, searching for any sign of the child or the dark figure. Nothing. Then I spotted something glinting at the edge of the clearing. Cautiously, I moved toward it. As I approached, I realized it was a small porcelain doll, identical to those I'd seen pressed against the tree earlier. My stomach twisted. Had it somehow followed me? I knelt down, examining the doll closely. The painted smile looked cracked, its glassy eyes staring back at me with an unsettling familiarity. As I reached out to touch it, the ground shifted beneath me again. I staggered as a deep rumble echoed from somewhere in the forest. It was as if the earth itself protested my presence. I stood up, heart racing. Panic seized me once more. If the doll was here, what else had followed me? My instincts kicked in. I had to find a way out before whatever was lurking returned. Just as I turned back, the laughter returned, playful and ghostly. It was softer, almost inviting now. It twisted through the trees, and I hesitated, feeling a pull toward it. What if the child needed help? But deeper down, I sensed the malice that hid beneath the laughter and the overwhelming urge to flee. I took off in the opposite direction, running through the trees. Branches scraped against my arms as I pushed deeper into the shadows. Each step felt heavier, the ground beneath my feet more unstable, as if the forest itself wanted to trip me. Suddenly, a piercing scream shattered the night. It wasn't just laughter now. It was a cry of distress. I froze, torn. Was it the child's voice, or a lure designed to pull me back into the thrall of the darkness? The scream echoed again. It was close, too close, and my heart raced with fear. I didn't want to turn back, but I was drawn to the sound, curiosity and dread battling within me. With a surge of resolve, I took a step forward, inching toward the source of the scream. The shadows seemed to thicken around me, barriers rising as I approached. It was as if the forest had a life of its own, a will that wanted to keep me from the sound. I braced myself, light ahead now flickering like a beacon. But just as I moved, the laughter erupted again, louder, more chaotic. I felt a shiver crawl down my spine. I had to choose, follow the scream or run back toward the light before it was too late. I took a breath and headed towards the scream, uncertainty wrapping around me like the vines that tangled my feet. What lay ahead would change everything. I stepped cautiously, the echo of the last scream still ringing in my ears. It was as if the sound had woven itself into the fabric of the night. The wind rustled with a sharpness that felt almost alive, pushing back against me as I moved forward. I could feel the heat of my pulse in my throat. I was scared, but a flicker of resolve kept my feet moving. The laughter morphed again. Now it was mocking, a twisted sound meant to lead me off track. I couldn't shake the thought that the child was in grave danger. I reached a small thicket, my breath escaping in quick puffs. The trees closed in around me, creating a natural cage of branches and shadows. I could see the flicker of light again, drawing me closer. Then another voice joined the laughter, this one soft and pleading. "Help me," it whispered, echoing through the dark. My heart dropped. It was unmistakably the same voice I yearned to find. Driven by instinct, I plunged deeper through the underbrush. As I burst through the thicket, I stumbled into a clearing. It was bathed in silver moonlight, but what I saw chilled me. There, at the center, stood a pair of shadowy figures. They were indistinct, but seemed to be hovering over something small on the ground. My breath hitched. It couldn't be the child, could it? I crept closer, my heart racing in my chest. The figures twisted in and out of focus, as if bending the very light around them. Laughter erupted from them, but there was something different. It was layered, rhythmic, and faintly sinister, like some macabre dance. Then I saw it, the porcelain doll, but now it was lying helplessly on the ground, surrounded by a faint golden glow. I tried to shout, to alert whoever was in danger, but my voice caught in my throat. The air turned heavy, pressing down on me as if the forest were telling me to stay silent. The figures turned, revealing themselves in the moonlight. They weren't just shadows. Tattered, old clothes hung from their forms. I recognized those outfits. They were the same as the ones the dolls had worn at the tree. My skin crawled. Were these the spirits of the dolls? With a surge of adrenaline, I backed away slowly, terror gnawing at my insides. But just as I lifted my foot, the ground beneath me erupted. Hands, small, bony hands, shot up from the earth, grabbing at my ankles as if the earth itself was trying to pull me under. I gasped, yanking my foot free. The figures cackled, unabashed by my fear. I had to escape. I spun on my heel, sprinting back through the thicket. The laughter chased me, a chorus of mocking voices celebrating my panic. Just as I thought I was free, I stumbled over a vine, sprawling onto the forest floor. I braced for the worst, but there was only silence. I glanced back, my heart pounding in disbelief. The figures had vanished, swallowed by the darkness once again. But then, just beyond the thicket, I saw something shimmering in the moonlight. It glinted like a warning. I staggered closer, dread pooling in my stomach. That's when I saw it. Another doll, but this one had an eerily familiar face. A face that looked like mine. I froze. The realization hit me hard. What did this mean? Would I become one of them? I scrambled back, but the shadows began to swirl around me again. I had to get out, but how? The forest felt alive, suffocating me with its presence. There was no time to waste. I had to make a choice. Face what I had found, or continue running deeper into the unknown. The darkness was closing in. I didn't know which way to turn. The shadows flickered at the edges of my vision, teasing me, weaving through the trees like ghosts. Panic seeped into my mind. I couldn't waste another moment standing there. With every ounce of courage, I dashed deeper into the forest, hoping to escape whatever traps lay ahead. Ahead, a soft breeze rustled the branches, whispering secrets I couldn't decipher. I kept running, branches scratching against my arms, the chill of the night wrapping around me like a shroud. But as I ran, I couldn't shake the image of the doll with my face. It felt like it was watching me, judging me. I pushed forward, breath coming in gasps. The laughter echoed again, but this time it was joined by a more sinister sound, a low, rumbling growl that sent chills skittering down my spine. I skidded to a stop, my heart thundering in my ears. Glancing into the underbrush, I saw a pair of glowing eyes staring back at me. They were not human, far from it. Low to the ground and brimming with malice, whatever it was crept closer, snarling softly. My instincts kicked in. I turned to run again, but the growl grew louder, a warning. Whatever was in the forest was getting braver, and it wasn't just playing tricks. I stumbled through the trees, dodging branches and trying to keep my footing. Panic surged with every breath I took. Suddenly, my foot caught on something, a thick root skirting the ground, and I lost my balance, falling hard. The impact knocked the air from my lungs, and I rolled onto my back. The glow from those eyes was closer now, hovering at the edge of a small clearing ahead. I lay still, hiding among the leaves, hoping to avoid detection. My heart raced, a wild animal caught in a trap. I strained to make out what was in front of me. The creature emerged slowly, a nightmare in a twisted form. It was long and sinewy, like a distorted version of a dog, but with far too many eyes and glistening razor-sharp teeth. The laughter echoed again, surrounding me, feeding on my fear. I had to stay quiet. I barely breathed, hoping the shadows would cover me. The creature sniffed the air, its gaze flickering to a patch of moonlight. That was my chance. I pushed myself up and sprinted toward the opposite side of the clearing. Then I saw it. Right in my path was something that made me freeze. A massive tree, ancient and gnarled, loomed over me, and at its base were the remnants of wooden dolls. They lay discarded, some headless, others with twisted faces. A shiver crawled up my spine as I realized they weren't just remnants. They were connected to everything I had seen, the laughter, the shadows, that familiar face. But before I could escape, I heard it again. Soft, pleading, echoing through the night. "Help me!" My heart sank. The child from earlier? Or another lost spirit? Just as I tried to make sense of it, everything went dark. The laughter faded, replaced by silence. I was alone, but not for long. Something was coming, and I could feel it creeping closer, hungry and waiting. I bolted upright, heart racing, my surroundings still engulfed in misty darkness. The chilling quiet pressed against my ears as I strained to catch even the faintest hint of laughter or whispers. But there was nothing, just the throbbing pulse of my heartbeat filling the night air. The sensation of being lost within a dream lingered, yet I was acutely aware that something, someone, was looming nearby, watching. As hard as I tried to summon the courage to push myself upright, I found myself paralyzed. All I could do was listen. Then, faintly at first, the laughter emerged, distant yet close enough to grip me with terror and longing. It twisted my gut, mixing nostalgia with dread. I squirmed on the ground, pushing against the gnawing sense of inevitability. I had to know. With an immense effort, I stood. My legs felt heavy beneath me, as if entwined in the very roots I had just stumbled through. I stepped forward, daring to venture out of my temporary shelter. Moonlight streamed through the treetops, illuminating the clearing where I had fallen. Before me stood the gnarled tree, its bark adorned with the remnants of the dolls, faces frozen in expressions of horror that mirrored my fear. A sense of belonging washed over me, as if the tree had pulled my spirit in, convincing me I was part of something larger. "Come play with us." The voice echoed clearer now, drawing me in deeper. I hesitated, uncertain if I could make that leap of faith. Although I felt the pull toward innocence, my instincts screamed for me to retreat. But there was the weight of necessity tethered to the laughter. It clamored for acknowledgement. I moved closer, kneeling beside the tree. The cracked faces of the dolls stared back, as if they were begging me to release them from their torment. My fingers brushed against one face, a doll that mirrored my own blurry reflection. An icy grip crept around my heart. But as I reached out to grasp it, the atmosphere shifted. The laughter turned sharp, entwining with desperate cries, urging me to free them, even as shadows danced between the trees. "Help me!" I couldn't ignore it any longer, this child's heart-wrenching plea. I yanked my hand back and stood, fueled by a gut-wrenching urgency. I had to break the cycle. I had to escape this atmosphere while I still could. I turned on my heels and sprinted away from the tree. The laughter surged, a cacophony urging me to return, promising a sweet return to innocence if I stayed. But the cries grew louder, a stark contrast to the laughter, pulling me toward the boundary of the forest. Branches whipped against my legs as I raced, the chill of the night skimming over my... As I stumbled out of the thicket, the laughter receded, retreating like a low tide. I burst onto the path that led back toward my home. A sliver of promise before the house loomed ahead like a sanctuary that might offer refuge. Yet as I ran, the ground trembled beneath me, and dark figures appeared at the edges of my vision. I dared not look back, pushing forward even harder, praying to reach the safety of my front door. The distant laughter faded, but flared up once more, mixed with the echoes of sorrow that taunted me relentlessly. I reached my house, gasping for breath as the reality of it all came crashing down. I fumbled for my keys, the metal cold and unyielding in my sweaty palm. Just as I turned the lock and flung the door open, I felt a rush of air behind me. I stepped inside, slamming the door and locking it tight. I leaned against it, panting heavily. But in the silence that followed, a soft tapping began again, steady and rhythmic, the sound piercing through the quiet of the evening. Confused and terrified, I glanced toward the walls, searching for the source. The laughter from the forest echoed faintly in my mind, juxtaposed against the quiet of my home. Was it over? Did I escape? As I turned away, I caught a glimpse of familiar shapes peering through the window. Figures draped in shadows, their eyes reflective like shiny stones. My heart sank. Were they children? The same children I had heard? I took a step back, reluctantly allowing the coldness of coherence to wash over me. Nothing was ever truly over. I moved toward the window to peek outside, dread tethered to my thoughts. The figures were gone, but the laughter remained, suspended in the air, a haunting melody playing just beyond the whispers of the night, lingering like a thread I couldn't quite grasp. What had begun as a search for respite had unfurled into an exploration of an unsettling truth. I felt a shiver run through me. The questions turned dark. I was forever marked by the shadows nestled in that suburban neighborhood. I knew I'd never be completely free. And even though I wasn't sure what had really happened, there was no denying the echoes of laughter woven into the silence of my nights. I moved to a different city weeks later, but sometimes, late at night, I still hear the whispers, calling me back home. In those quiet moments, I wonder if I truly escaped.